All right, for more on insider trading, I'm joined by Richard Roth. He's a securities attorney and founder and president of the Roth Law Firm. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Rich, in this case, two Ukrainians hacked into embargoed non-public company information, mostly earnings on the Newswire service systems, and then they sold that information, which was traded on before it was publicly released. How did the authorities figure this out?
So we don't really know how it's one of two ways. Either the SEC has implemented a strategy whereby they actually can go in and determine what comes out and who actually is doing trading before the press release comes out, or there was a tip. A lot of times these are on tips. Somebody may have told the authorities that John Smith is doing something improper. So it's one of the two. Either they have a system in place or they got a tip from someone.
Well, you know, Rich, they got this information from various PR newswires that publish earnings statements. And the question is, how is the SEC increasing focus on cybersecurity? The SEC has strict regulations on how financial papers need to be handled, they need to be shredded, and how they need to be disposed of and where they can be kept. But now with everything going online, can it enforce that brokerage and advisory firms, and in this case, newswires, enhance their security?
It is so hard with the information technological boom that we've had. It is so hard for a regulator to enforce when someone is actually doing trade before there's an announcement. It's not only with the PR newswire, it's when companies do their press releases, it's when the news comes out. They are trying. They have their own, if you will, divisions in place, which actually track it. And what they look for is an individual or groups of individuals doing big trades on the moments or minutes before something is actually released. It's hard, though. It's not easy to find.
My question is, they have regulations on how you're supposed to deal with paper documents. You're supposed to shred them. You're supposed to dispose of them in a certain way to prevent that. Do they now have regulations in place for how much security you're supposed to have for a website? And can they enforce that to make sure that your website, if it does contain information that is privileged, cannot be as easily hacked? Can they force third-party vendors like PR Newswires to up their security?
Great question. So the SEC has some mechanism in place. Their biggest mechanism is essentially communication with customers, with the public. They do not have a cybersecurity system in place. What they can do, and answer your second question, they can't really force the newswires to do something, but they can force the traders, they can force the brokerage firms, they can force the registered reps not to trade on this insider information. The way they do that is they essentially monitor it, and they make sure that the brokerage firm has some system in place to prohibit that. It's not easy. It's really hard. It's only essentially done when it's caught. So it's not an easy thing to find.
Not easy. And how is social media making this even more difficult to monitor?
Social media makes it near impossible, although it's not impossible. With the Facebook and the tweeters, the story you just ran with Raj Maratman, he was nailed, if you will, convicted of insider trading for tweeting messages and texting messages. It is not easy. What you need to do, and what a firm needs to do, that is a brokerage firm, is to have very strict penalties and punishment for someone who doesn't obey the rules. It's as if if you will, Pre-Parara said, you need to have very strict penalties. Without the strict penalties, people will get away with it. If you know the strict penalties, they're going to limit themselves from engaging in such criminal conduct.
Well, I want to focus quickly on another hacking case, which has gotten headlines, and that is of Ashley Madison, the website for married spouses to find someone to have an affair with. Can the customers, the users of that site, sue Ashley Madison for not adequately protecting their information, particularly those that paid extra to have those records erased, which apparently didn't happen?
You got to laugh about this because this is a site to keep the men's names discreet, and it went out. The answer is most likely not, because there are rules. Every website, especially developed websites, Ashley Madison is one of them, have rules. No one looks at them, but they have rules, and they have regulations, and they have essentially a contract between the customer and Ashley Madison. And those rules provide generally that we will do everything to keep it discreet, but it's no guarantee. Who looks at those rules when they log in and find out? So the customer doesn't have much recourse, and it is, on the one hand, it's somewhat ironic. On the other hand, it's somewhat of a shame that this discreet service is not so discreet.
Not discreet at all, as it turns out. All right, thank you so much, Richard Roth.